Now, can China and the EU forge closer economic and trade ties? Can the Belt and Road Initiative, the fight against climate change and COVID, act as a catalyst for change in the right direction? For more on this, we'll be joined by from Jaipur by Erik Solheim, president of the BRI Green Development Institute. He's also the former Undersecretary General of the United Nations. Sir, welcome to the program, or should I say Secretary Solheim. Great to have you with us. So let's talk about this energy dialogue. You're welcome. China-EU energy dialogue was held ahead of the summit. The EU tries to reduce its dependence on fossil fuel, mainly from Russia. How do you foresee the green energy transition coming about?
I think the urgency in Europe now is not only to move fast into the green future, but also to make energy security happening in Europe. And this will mean that Europe will move, as Commissioner Timmermans said, with lightning speed into the solar and wind and hydropower economy, because that will make Europe less dependent on Russian oil and gas, and at the same time take Europe in a greener direction.
All right, last month, Chinese President Xi Jinping met virtually with French and German leaders, reiterating China's determination to work with Europe to tackle climate change. But given the Russia-Ukraine conflict and the upsurge of COVID infections around the world, do you think climate change will somehow take a back seat?
There is an urgent short-term and a long-term perspective, and the urgent short-term perspective is that the West and China should agree on two issues. We should agree that there is a need for an immediate ceasefire and a stop in the war, because too many people are killed and dying by the day. And we all agree that there needs to be a negotiated settlement between Russia and Ukraine to this conflict. And secondly, we should agree to defend the sovereignty of Ukraine. That's very important for Europe, but that's also very important for China, because all the Chinese arguments say when it comes to the reunification of Taiwan with the motherland, they are based on the defense of national sovereignty, and we need to defend the national sovereignty of Ukraine as we defend the national sovereignty of China or any nation in Europe.
China's economic planning agency, the National Development and Reform Commission, China's top economic planner, has released a guidance on the growth of the Green Development Initiative along the BRI countries. How important is this document?
This document is very important, and of course that speaks for the long-term perspective. The long-term perspective is that the United States need to accept that China is now an equal power to the United States, and that doesn't sit easy with Americans to accept that parity in global power. The West also need to accept that China is a global power for stability and a very peaceful power. China indeed has not been involved in any war since 1979. While of course the United States have gone into wars in Afghanistan, Iraq, Vietnam, and numerous other places. But we need to work together, and the Belt and Road Initiative can play a key role here, because it will make China able to invest in the renewable future, in solar and wind and green hydrogen and high-speed rail and electric buses, electric cars, in more 130 countries in the world. Nearly all countries in the world are now parties to the Belt and Road Initiative, even countries as far away as Latin America, who of course were never at the Silk Road between Europe and China. So this is now encompassing the entire world, and an enormous opportunity for green investments.
Right, but the reality, sir, is not all countries are at the same level of economic development, nor are they at the same level of transitioning off fossil fuel and into renewable energies. What are the challenges on the ground for all these green BRI countries to really go on the same page?
One very important aspect of this guiding document coming from the Chinese government is that it's also focused on private sector. It says that it's business which can make all these green investment. Last year I visited Envision, that's one of the biggest wind companies in the world, at the Yangtze River in Jiangsu province. in Shenzhen. I visited BYD, one of the biggest renewable electric cars companies in the world. We just saw CITL, the big Chinese electric battery maker. They are now want to invest in the United States, and Americans say, yes, if you invest in the United States, we want access to your technology. So China now has the foremost technology in many areas. It's the biggest in solar, in wind, in green hydrogen, in every aspect of green technologies. And these investments should be made in the in the Belt and Road countries, and that will happen by private sector, but government can help by making the money available, inciting business to do it through loan schemes and in many other ways. But I'm very optimistic that we'll see a massive investment in renewables now in Belt and Road, particularly after President Xi decided that China will cut all overseas coal investments.
But how do you see BRI member states or countries really coming on board with this idea of using primarily clean energy? Of course, China says it will stop building new overseas coal power projects. What is the significance of China's pledge?
The very good news is that this comes in China at the same time in the beneficiary countries of Belt and Road, where China stopped coal. Bangladesh also said it wanted to stop coal. Kenya said it wanted to stop coal. The Philippines, Pakistan, many of the beneficiary countries also wanted to stop coal. So this is a similar development in China as the investor and in the countries which will benefit from this. And of course, when these countries cannot get coal investment from China, they will ask China for all the others China can offer, which is wind and solar and green hydrogen and electric mobility. I mean, remind yourself, China has constructed 40,000 kilometers of high-speed rail in China since Beijing Olympics in 2008. The United States of America has constructed exactly 0 kilometers of high-speed rail. So of course China is very well positioned, for instance, to bring high-speed rail to Belt and Road countries. And we saw last year the opening of the China-Laos Railroad. We now see China building the Bandung-Jakarta Railroad in Indonesia, and before that in Ethiopia and Kenya. So I think we will see a lot of Chinese investments in roads and railroads, as well as in green energy in the years to come.
So President Solheim, I want to ask you about the impact of COVID. How, in your assessment, has COVID, maybe slowed the pace of the green development initiatives along the BRI countries?
It has in some way slowed, but in reality it has increased, because during COVID, all the private sector companies came forward and said, we want to go green. And in basically every nation now, private sector is ahead of government. In China, of course, government plays a very, very instrumental role. But in Europe, in North America, and in many developing countries, private sector is now the driving force for green development. And you see that happening at great speed. But of course, China can add a lot of momentum to this. And we should take one lesson from the COVID. To cite an old saying in the country where I am now, in India, in the old Vedas of India, it is said, the whole world is one family. And that should be our lessons also from COVID. The whole world is one family. We need to stick together.
Another very important logistical transportation site is the China-Europe Railway Express that is serving as a key logistical cog in the Belt and Road Initiative. It has been an incredible success story, in fact. Do you see the transcontinental trade route, surviving the current conflict between Russia and the West?
I definitely hope so, because this is an enormous important link between China and Europe, and has been, as you said, been highly successful. Trains coming from Zhejiang and a number of places in China and going into different places in Europe, Madrid, Brussels, London. So this should for sure continue. However, it will depend somewhat on the Russian-Ukrainian conflict. The sooner we can find a ceasefire and a settlement in Ukraine, the more easy it will be to keep this up. The Russians will experience what the Americans experienced in Vietnam and Afghanistan and Iraq. It's very easy to start a war. It is very difficult to end the war, but the sooner the war can end, the sooner we can pick up this important trade.
But at least, sir,
China
do you expect
and
some disruptions to the China-EU, China-Europe expressway? And how can we really deal with all these disruptions?
It's very important with our political perspective. We need to fight nail and tooth against any idea of a new Cold War or any delinking of the West and China. Our prosperity, our trade, our peace, our environment depends upon a very close relationship, particularly between the United States and China, but by extension between the West and China. We should respect each other. The West should respect the rise of China. The West should understand that China is a peaceful power, but China should at this part also be a little bit more open to criticism, accept a dialogue on human rights issues, and China should not take any slight to China's pride as a big issue. And China is a big, powerful, the most shining nation in human history. So China should accept small slights with more pride and not fight back.
Already, President Erik Solheim, that's all the time we have. Thank you so much for coming on our show today. Thank you very much. I'm Wang Guan in Beijing, and thank you for watching The Hub on CGTN. Our news coverage continues. Bye and take care.